All right, and let's get started. Lots to show again today, as always. I did try to reduce down the number of things, but I got excited. So there's lots of stuff. So today is all about Chromebooks, obviously, but I do have to say, if you are using a Mac or a PC or even iPads, pretty much everything will work across all of those devices as well. So I'm Katie. Thank you for joining me. If you haven't been to one of my webinars before, I run my business Midnight Music. I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, and I basically do music teacher training for a living, and it's all focused on music technology. So I have my website. I have a podcast as well, which I've recently started up again after a bit of a break. And I have a couple of boys. I've updated the photo. This is their current look at the moment. And I have a dog, Ella, who may make an appearance during the webinar today. The boys won't. They're at school, so that's a good thing. Okay, so a bit of housekeeping. Amy, I introduced before. She's moderating the chat and she's fantastic. She's awesome. And she knows all the things about Chromebooks, so she can definitely help out while we're going along. If you have any tech issues, just check your internet connection, refresh, go in and out of the webinar if you want to. You can actually view this directly on YouTube as well. Sometimes people find that it's easier to switch to that. And Amy even keeps an eye on the YouTube comments as well. She's got one eye on each chat window. So if you want to switch to that, that's totally fine. You'll be able to see things there. I will give a copy of the slides. Now, this will be for people who have registered for the webinar ahead of time. You will get an email afterwards with the copy of the slides sent to you. And that will just mean you don't have to take copious notes today if you don't want to, but you can also still do that. And as mentioned, all of the links are in the Wait Click collection. So we'll do a question and answer at the end. I will plough through while I'm showing you things as we go, but then stop for questions at the very end. All right, in today's session, what we are going to cover is just a little bit about, what's the big deal about Chromebooks anyway? So I do get asked this question, like, what actually is a Chromebook? And then we'll talk a bit about how you can use them in class. And the main part of the webinar is going to be me showing you a whole series of useful apps and websites that work on Chromebooks. There are going to be music-specific ones. There are a couple of non-music-specific ones too, but super useful. Now, the next slide, I totally stole this from Amy, so all credit to her, because today, do you like my picture, Amy? Amy loves to show a dessert buffet at the beginning of many of her sessions, which indicates that you should not eat the whole buffet all at once. So basically, I'm going to be showing you a lot of things today, and do not get overwhelmed. The buffet will be there for when you need it. So do not eat the whole buffet and get sick from it. Just pick a couple of things. If you want to try something new out, pick one or two things, but don't go for the whole buffet. It will be there. I do get a lot of people saying that was a great webinar, but wow, way too much information. I'm totally overloaded now. So try and avoid that. Just pick one or two things. All right, so some general information about what makes Chromebooks unique, and I'm going to keep this really brief. I just want to talk about sort of the top headline things about Chromebooks. Essentially, and this is why they're so popular in a lot of schools and school districts, is that they are inexpensive devices to buy for students. So this makes it easier for a school or a school district to just buy a whole batch of them for the students. Inexpensive, they're lightweight in more ways than one. Lightweight sort of in the operating system, but also in the actual weight of the device. And they're super fast to start. You can kind of just like get going. Those of us that grew up with like old PCs, back in the day, like you would literally start your computer up and then just go make a cup of tea and come back again. But today, and this actually is the thing that's attractive to me about iPads as well, you're just kind of on and ready to go straight away. So that's a really good thing. Other things that are useful to note, and this is where people get a little bit confused maybe about Chromebooks, like what is a Chromebook? They are different to Macs and PCs in that they have their own operating system, and it is the Chrome operating system. Now, the Chrome operating system basically means that you can't really install apps or software that you might normally install on a Mac or PC. And this, I think, is what throws people at first. It's like there's often the first thing that people react to is, oh, I can't install Sibelius or Finale, and I don't have access to GarageBand, and I can't install Audacity. So what can I do? What's left for me? And in fact, there's a lot of things that are available now for Chromebooks, particularly now as opposed to, say, even 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Lots of online and web-based apps. So essentially, you're mostly using the Chrome browser to access things on your Chromebook. I say mostly because some Chromebooks, I won't say all of them because it may not be your Chromebooks at your school, but some Chromebooks can also install apps from the Google Play Store. So these are essentially Android apps, and you can visit the Google Play Store and install those apps on student Chromebooks. But I will say you'll need to maybe check with your IT person, because if they are the ones that manage the devices, they will probably need to do that for you. So just double check with them about what the process is. I don't know about most of those, I was going to say, probably going to be paid apps as well. So they may or may not be viable. And the last thing I'll mention is that Chromebooks actually have an expiration date. I don't know if you knew that or not, but they actually do have a date where they will not update anymore. So it used to be 5 years. I think it's 8 years now. And it's actually 8 years from the time that the Chromebook was created, made, produced, not from the time that you purchased it. So it's important to know that. If you, for some reason, get a secondhand Chromebook and it's 2 years old, that's already 2 years out of your lifespan of your Chromebook, if that makes any sense. I don't think it's a big deal for a lot of people. Mostly schools will turn over the Chromebooks before that expiration date is hit. And it doesn't mean that the Chromebook just doesn't work anymore at that point. It just means it's not going to update anymore. And at some point, you're going to find you just can't run the browser. You can't do the things that you want to do because it's not updating any longer. So it's just good to keep in mind. Not a big deal, I don't think, not as yet anyway, but just good, useful information. Now, using Chromebooks in class with students, again, this is another question I get asked quite a bit, like, how can I use them in class? And you really just can use them the same way that you would use any device in your class. They're just another tech tool. So you can use them for all the normal things you would use technology for in your music classes: exploring sound, composing, ear training, theory, reading notes of the staff exercises, performance, lots and lots of things. There's so many things you can do. And I would say really you can do almost everything that you can do on a Mac or a PC, you can do on a Chromebook. Some things are not as easy, like if you are heading into sort of video editing, for instance, you can do some on a Chromebook. If you're going to do heavy duty stuff, that's going to be better on a Mac or a PC, but you can still do so much on a Chromebook, and they really do make good student devices. This is also just one thing I'll briefly talk about. What if you only have a few Chromebooks? And I think I might have answered this question even in a recent podcast episode because someone asked this in, I think last year in the survey that we put out. And if you only have a few devices, and this goes for any device, not just Chromebooks, you could potentially consider using all of the Chromebooks. Let's say you have 5 in your class. You could use all of them at a single station where you're rotating through activities in your classroom. You could put them all on one station in your classroom and make that the tech station. And so students reach that, they do the tech activity that you have assigned, and students from the other stations in your class are working on other things which are perhaps not tech related. So that's one way you can use Chromebooks if you've got limited ones. The other thing is to consider doing group work with your students where maybe you assign roles to students. So for instance, let's say you were doing a storytelling activity where they've got to record a story and add sound effects along with it. So you might assign one student in the class to be the person who is the scribe and writes down the story on the Chromebook in a document. And then the roles might switch, and then someone else is the producer of the story. So while they're recording, the students will have one person who's operating the Chromebook and will be the one to control the recording app that they're working in. And then maybe another student has the role of being the editor, and they're going to edit the work using the Chromebook. So they can switch roles and share the use of a single Chromebook in group work. All right, I'm going to get into lots and lots of resources and tools that work really well on Chromebooks. So I'm going to start off with recording and editing audio. So things that will allow you to do this in the class. And this is, a fantastic thing to do on any device. So one of the first things that people say is, well, I can't use GarageBand. I don't have Macs anymore. I've got Chromebooks. And particularly if you've come from Macs or even iPads, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, well, now what? I used to use GarageBand with my students and they loved it, but what am I left with now? So there are two great options. And the first one is Soundtrap. Lots of you are going to know Soundtrap. And the second one, which I'll just briefly show here because they're very similar, is BandLab. Now, both of these are really like GarageBand. They are in the browser. And so you'll open up the browser, log into the website there, and students can create their music production activities there. So basically you can hit a record button and record through a microphone. You can also record with software instruments. So you can open up a software instrument. So we're talking like a piano that's in the app, and then they can play the piano and actually record those parts. You can even drag in audio from other places. So if students recorded, for instance, a sound effect on their phone, they could even add that into BandLab and Soundtrap and add it to their project there. So these are really great programs to use and user-friendly. I think they're fairly user-friendly. And these are some of the things that, I've done with these programs. So record through a microphone, like I mentioned before. That could be an inbuilt microphone in the Chromebook itself, or it could be an external mic. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that at the very end. You can record and play MIDI. So that's the software instruments that I was talking about. Bring up a piano keyboard, and the piano keyboard can actually sound like a piano or a trumpet or a tuba or an oboe or a flute or a string instrument, any instrument you like that's in the program. And again, you can use your on-screen or computer keyboard to trigger the notes for that instrument, but also you can plug in a small MIDI keyboard if you want to do that, which makes it somewhat easier, especially if you're a keyboard player. And again, I'm going to mention that a little bit at the end. Editing obviously is a thing. So if you've got audio that you want to edit, or if you've just recorded something, you can edit there, and you can use pre-made loops and sound effects in the programs as well. So these are highly flexible and work with all age groups pretty much. I know Amy's used, I think either or both of those programs with quite young age groups. Yeah. Grade 3, I want to say. Amy's nodding. She can't speak. 3, yeah. Yeah, grade 2, she's saying. Yep. So grade 2 and up are fantastic. If you were going to tackle something like that with even younger students, I would probably be, as the teacher, the controller of the software, get them to sort of contribute by coming up to record something or do it as a group at the board, that type of thing. So that works really well. All right. Plain old audio editing. So some of you may have used Audacity. Audacity is a fantastic program. I love it. It's actually getting some updates at the moment, which I'm really enjoying. And Audacity is downloadable software for Mac or PC. So you cannot use this on a Chromebook. But what could you use instead? So 2 options. Sodaphonic is a really simple one. I've mentioned this before in our previous webinars and on podcasts, I think too. It's fantastic. You just open it up, you can hit record and just get going and record something. You can also drag in an existing audio file into Sodaphonic. You don't need to log in or set up an account if you don't want to. You can just open it and get started. So I kind of love that simplicity. Now, if you want to, you can set up a free account, and that allows you to save your projects and come back to them another day. So that can be a useful thing. But if you are working with young students and they don't have email addresses, you can still use this program. And the same thing goes, I believe, from memory, for Twisted Wave. Twisted Wave is another option. This one's been around quite some time now, longer than Sodaphonic as far as I know. And again, a great option for recording. If you want something a bit more simple, I would go for Sodaphonic, I'd say. It's a little bit more like fewer bells and whistles. But they're both great options. They both allow you to record and edit audio. Then you can export as an MP3 file or WAV file and then use it in wherever you'd like to. Just before I go on to the next section, going back to Soundtrap and BandLab, if you want to know some projects to do for Soundtrap and BandLab, and I will add a link into the wake clip, but I didn't already. I did do a full webinar just about Soundtrap and BandLab. So if you want to catch up on that, it still lives on YouTube somewhere on my channel, Midnight Music channel, and you can catch up on that. I talked all about lesson ideas for using those programs there. All right, so let's go on. So today, just so you know, I'm not going to jump in and show maybe any of these tools live and show you how they work, simply because I thought it would be better to get through more of them and you can go off and explore them yourself after the webinar takes place. So notation, again, what do you use now if you've got Chromebooks with your students and you can't install Finale or Spalius or MuseScore or Dorico or any of those other ones that are downloadable and installable software? What are the options now? So two fantastic options. The first one is NoteFlight. And this one's been around for quite a long time. I think I showed NoteFlight first in a workshop, maybe it might have been 2010 or so. I want to say around then, maybe it was a bit later. But it's been around for a long time and it has lots of fantastic features. So the other one, which is Flat, I'll mention in a moment, but for NoteFlight, this one works on all devices. You can even have students collaborating with one another, and it works in a take turns situation. So one student will make a change to a score. They'll save their changes, then another student who's in the same document can add to that as well. NoteFlight is unique in that it has a marketplace where you can access a content library, and as a teacher, you can even sell your own arrangements, or I guess students could as well. It also allows you to record audio into the score, which can be really useful, and you can sync YouTube videos with a score as well. So the other option for notation, the other main option is flat.io. And again, this is a great program. This has really come a long way. It's a more recent, Flat hasn't been around as long as NoteFlight, but it has really come a long way in, I want to say, the last 1 or 2 years even. Lots of features added in. When it first came out, it was fairly pared back. Because that's what you do with software. You start simple and then you add in features as you go. They have really added in a lot of fantastic features specifically for educators, including what you can see here on the screen. So you can enter notes in and click a button and change the color of the notes if you want to Boomwhacker colors. You can also instantly add Kodai hand signs if that's of interest to you as well. And you literally just click a button and it pops them in there for you. And they're all little minuscule, I don't know how well you can see them there, minuscule hand signs which look really beautiful. So it makes it really easy to make those resources. In addition to that, Flat has the option for you as a teacher, and this is the education version. I need to specify for both NoteFlight and Flat, and actually Soundtrap and BandLab, if we go back to those two, you need to be using the EDU version, the education versions of these. The education features inside Flat allow you as a teacher to set up tests and assessments really easily. You can basically say, let's say you wanted to do note recognition with your students or intervals, something like that. You can basically go into a menu and say, okay, for note recognition, I want to test the students on the notes between middle C up to an octave higher, and I only want to test on spaces, not the notes on lines. And I want to do 15 questions, and I can't remember the other parameters you can choose, but you can set your parameters like that and then just click the button to create your assessment. And you don't have to do anything. It looks like this thing that you can see on the right-hand side there. This one is actually showing intervals, so you can pop in which intervals do you want to test the students on, hit the button to generate your test, and it does it all beautifully for you. And it ends up looking like this, where the students get buttons to press, like which thing is this that I'm listening to, which interval on that, they'll just identify it there. Flat includes this sort of learning management system, I guess. So because you're assigning projects to students, you as the teacher can see all of their results coming in, and you can get some good statistics on how your students are going while they're working on everything. So in terms of Flat and some of the features that are sort of unique to Flat, again, it works on all devices. Real-time collaboration for this one. This is the worksheet generator is the thing that I just mentioned. And if you use their worksheet generator, it's auto-graded for you, which is another big benefit. Flat works offline if you need it to. And you can do those things I mentioned: coloured notes, code eye hand signs, audio recording inside the score is similar to Noteflight. And there's an add-on for Google Docs and Sheets. So some of you may have actually used that. The add-on at this point is quite a simplified version of Flat. And the add-on, all this means is that when you're inside Google Docs, you can literally click a button, go into a menu, set up a tiny example, a notation example, and add it straight into your document. So you don't need to go to Flat, make the thing, download it, and then upload as an image into Docs. You can do everything within Docs itself and Sheets too. So yeah, fantastic tool, really, really useful, both of those. All right, let's talk about notes of the staff. This one's been a funny one lately. I've just found it's really hard to find great places or websites or tools to get kids to experience and learn notes of the staff and to practice identifying them. So I'm going to show you a few options here. I've got a few web-based ones and then a couple which are Google Play Store. But anyway, we'll talk about those in a moment. So the first one here, now Thierry, who created this one, is actually on the webinar today. So congratulations to Thierry, because he's got a fantastic website. If you haven't explored the overarching website where this comes from, it's called Dr. Music. And it's music with an IK at the end. There's a whole host of apps and software on there, so you can go and experience those and check them all out. There's a whole big menu of things to play with. I'm going to show you a few of these in today's webinar. This is the first one. So this one is Robot Factory, and this is a way for students to practice identifying notes of the treble staff. So at this point, it's only treble staff. I'm not sure if there are plans to add bass clef in, but Terry can maybe comment in the comments window. You'll probably get a whole stack of requests for that now, so sorry about that. But this is a great way to get students to identify notes of the staff. And if you've ever used Staff Wars, it's kind of similar in the way that notes come flying across from the right-hand side, nice and slowly. And for each note that you identify correctly, you get to add a little piece to your robot. You are basically building a robot. So you can see the head of the robot in my screenshot there. If I get F correct there, it will add to my robot that you can see in the bottom left-hand side of the screenshot there on the right side of the slide. Now, when you've built your robot, so you get 5 or 6 notes correct in a row, you will build your robot and complete it. And when you get 5 robots completed, they will go into a box, a packing box. And then after you've completed those robots, the game speeds up just a little bit though. For those of you that have used Staff Wars in the past, I love Staff Wars. This is a space theme one, which you'll see in a moment, but the speeding up in that game, it kind of goes quite quickly and it gets a little bit panicky for those that are not really good at identifying notes. So this is a little bit more gentle. And in fact, Thierry's got 5 or 6 levels, I think 5 levels altogether of difficulty. So you can choose to start at one of the lower levels, which only gives a few notes. So I think it's C, D, and E only in the first level, and then it goes up from there. But this is fantastic. It's lots of fun. I love the theme. The robot theme, which appears throughout his website, is really good. I think it's really appealing to all students. So definitely give that one a go. I'm just going to also mention on the next screen here, at the end of the game, when the game is over for students, they will see their score on a screen like this. So if you need them to capture that, you could just take a screenshot and just, get the students to send that to you if you wanted to do that. Lots of free games and apps. That's what I recommend if there's not a sort of a way for you as a teacher to log in and track scores and that sort of thing. You can just get students to take a screenshot of their final score. All right, so next one. This is a really simple one and definitely for younger students. This is just a simple note name game, note words, I should say. So basically, students are identifying notes to form words, and they're really simple ones. So this would definitely be for elementary students. And this is on the Classics for Kids website. So another good web-based one there. Now, if you are working with older students and you want something a lot more comprehensive, I can highly recommend musictheory.net. This is also a place where you can set up exercises for your students. So I've really highlighted the exercise customizer here because when you when you open up musictheory.net, you're going to see a really, really long menu of things that you can do. So all of these things here are different types of exercises. And I know many of you have explored musictheory.net in the past with your students. Now, up the very top is note identification. So your students could head into there, get started straight away, practicing identifying notes of the staff, and they can customize their own exercise there if they want to. However, if you as a teacher want to customize it to something specific and send a link to your customized version of one of these exercises, scroll all the way down to the bottom and head to this area which says for teachers. And I think a lot of people don't realize this is here because it's kind of really low on the page. When you find that bit, here's my blown up version. Click on Exercise Customizer, and this is where you can actually set up what you want to test your students on. Now, when you've clicked on that link, it will take you to this, and this list here is the same list of different types of exercises that you saw on the first page of the website. But this time, we're in the special teacher section where anything you set up in here, you can actually send a link for your students. So you'll choose the thing. So let's say you choose that note of identification up the top. Then you're going to customize all the things here, which shown on the right-hand side. So which clefs do you want to test students on? Which range? Is it lines and spaces or just lines or just spaces or whatever it is? How do you want them to give you the information? Is it letters or is it with solfaing names or something else? And so on. So you choose all of those things. Now, before you leave that, down the very bottom, and I do think this is a little bit too subtle, to be honest, down the very bottom is the link that you'll send to your students. I kind of wish that you did all of this and then hit a button which says save or share, and then the next page was the link that you're going to give your students. I just think this is, it's easily missed down the bottom. So when you're making the changes, you can actually in real time see that link change. So whatever changes you make to this menu will be reflected in the URL that's at the bottom of the page. So once you've finished, then copy that link. If you copy this link and go back and change the key signatures or something, you're going to need to copy that link again because it will have changed. So just make sure that you do that. Then you can send that to your students and then they can use that and they will just have presented to them an exercise with all the customization that you've set up. So I hope that's useful. I'd love to know if that's new information for people or if maybe you've already all known about that, but I feel like it's a little bit unknown. Okay, so continuing with note identification options in the Google Play Store, if you are able to install Android apps on your student computers, Chromebooks, then there are a couple of options here. So as I mentioned before, not all Chromebooks can do this. It depends on the model. I think the more recent ones, it's more likely. The earlier ones, less likely, as in older Chromebooks. And you'll need to just check with your IT person. So the first one I'll mention is Flashnote Derby. Now, this is a fantastic iOS app, but unfortunately, this version that you would install on your Chromebooks, it doesn't seem to have all the iOS features. I haven't tested it personally, but I read quite a few reviews. And unless it's changed since the reviews were written, it looks like not all of the features are in the Android version and the iOS features have the good ones. Not the good ones, I shouldn't say that, has a more comprehensive range of features. I did laugh because one mother wrote something about the fact that they used this with her daughter, and her daughter really enjoyed the app, and then later found out that there was a unicorn theme in the iOS version, and the mother writes in the review that she's been bitter ever since and won't use the app on Android anymore. So, if it's just a theme thing, that's not such a big deal in my mind. But anyway, I did laugh, the bitter daughter. Anyway, uh, the second option for downloading, from the Google Play Store is Star Wars, and I know a lot of you will already know Star Wars, space-themed note identification program, which is fantastic. It works really well, so this is definitely a good option. In particular, like you can use it with younger students, but in particular, I would say it works really well with middle and high school students because I don't know, it's a bit more challenging, I think. You can actually adjust the note range that students are being tested on. So explore that if you want to simplify it a little bit. And I'm just going to clear up something also about Star Wars because I've seen this comment multiple times in the past few months in different Facebook groups. People being disappointed that the web version of Star Wars has gone away since the demise of Flash. And I just want to clear up the fact that there was never a web version of Star Wars and it's never been Flash based. I think that's just a misconception people have in their minds. There was a downloadable version. If you're on Mac or PC, you could download the software and install it on your Mac or PC. And the developers are no longer supporting that downloadable version. You may have it still on your laptop and it may still work for the moment. It's going to stop working at some point. It just will because they're not updating it anymore. And if you go to their website now, you cannot download it afresh. So I know some people got new laptops maybe over your Christmas break or summer break and thought, I can't download Star Wars anymore. It's because it's been removed. So the only way you can use Star Wars is as an app. So from the Google Play Store or from the iOS, the Apple Store. And both work really well. All right. Let's move on to theory and ear training options. I've just got a couple of options here. I didn't go comprehensive totally for this, but I just want to mention a couple of things which are useful in this area. So Rhythm Randomizer is a fantastic free website. It's just kind of cool. And it's really simple. Amy and I both love this one. It's really simple to use. When you head there, do go into that little settings cog at the top left, and that's where you can choose many parameters for the rhythms that will show on the screen. Now, the idea for this is really, well, originally it was kind of set up as rhythm flashcards in a way. You would just display a rhythm on the computer, maybe even on a data projector for your students, and then students would sight read the rhythm. So you can use it in that way, absolutely still. They have added a couple of extra things in more recent times. You can actually have a metronome playing now at the same time as the rhythm, you performing the rhythm along with it, which is really good. And you can actually hear the rhythm being played back. If you maybe assign this to students to do on their own, they may need to listen to someone performing the rhythm correctly to check what they did. So you can do that. It does not listen to you performing the rhythm and then give you feedback on that. It's literally just to show the rhythm. But what happens is when you're on this website and you've set up your parameters for the rhythm, the note values that you want to use and the time signature and all of those other parameters, basically it will display your rhythm and then you can click on the screen or click on the new rhythm button up here and instantly you get a fresh rhythm with the same parameters. Click again, new rhythm, click again, new rhythm. So if you want really fast sight reading exercises on the fly, this is an excellent way to do it. If you've got students playing pitched instruments, you could ask them all to choose a pitch. Well, not them choose, maybe you pick the pitch, otherwise you'll get a lot of random things, but choose a pitch for them to play and they can play all on a single note. You could get them playing, split your group up and get them playing the notes of a chord and just get them to sight read the rhythms that way for a bit of interest, but super useful. I'm showing here an 8-bar rhythm, but you can change this to just 2 bars, longer rhythms if you want to. I feel like maybe 8 or 16 is the longest you can do. Anyway, many options in that settings menu, so go and explore that. Theoria is another great app which has theory, information, and exercises on it too. And it's a little bit like the next one, which I'll show, which we've already talked about, which is musictheory.net. So both of those are really worth exploring. For my friends who are in Australia and New Zealand and maybe the UK, if there's anyone watching, the terminology is kind of US based terminology. So that may or may not work for you and your students, but it's not so bad for them to be bilingual anyway, perhaps. So just keep that in mind. But lots of options there in both of those websites. And I think once you could use both of those with your students simultaneously, just to give them a bit of variety about what they're looking at. Oh, I just remembered another website I forgot to add in. Anyway, I might add that in later. Lastly, I do want to mention, if you want like what I think is the most comprehensive options for ear training and theory, these are both paid programs, but they are truly comprehensive. I don't know that there's probably a couple of other options out there, but Musician and Aurelia are highly comprehensive programs. So Aurelia is the ear training option. Musician is the music theory option. Separate software, but they kind of work in the same way. So you can customize anything in these programs, and the list of exercises and the range of levels is amazing. Truly amazing. If you as an adult, as a grown-up teacher musician, want to test yourself, just head into Aurelia and go up to the top levels of the ear training exercises, and that's a really great way to feel a little bit humble and test yourself on your own ear training or practice. If you feel like that's a weakness for you, I know some teachers don't love ear training themselves, great options for practicing. So these are both paid subscription options, and they're cloud-based. So I can definitely recommend checking them out. They have a trial if you just want to test them out. That gives you the opportunity to see, what's involved with the programs. I will also say that they have inbuilt curricula for different areas around the world. So in the States, there's a drop-down menu, and you can choose your curriculum from the menu if it's in there. A lot of them are. And then it will show you all of the things that your students need to know and the correct levels instantly without you having to go through and customize things yourself. So that's super useful. If you're in Australia, it's got the VCE curriculum, for instance, and the New South Wales one. And I feel like probably New Zealand too, but don't quote me on that. All right. Next, we are on to music creation and exploration. Okay, we're getting onto the fun stuff now, like literally the fun stuff. I feel like this is the bit where people get excited. I'm going to start with something that I have not really highlighted before. I've been exploring a lot of these things for many years now, have a couple of blog posts, but I really want to highlight Google things, I've called it. Now, the first one is not going to be anything unusual to any of you, and I'm pretty sure almost all of you would have already played with the Chrome Music Lab on your Chromebooks. Oh gosh, I'd love to know if anyone watching has not used the Chrome Music Lab or not even looked at it. I feel like it's been everywhere. This is a fantastic collection of experiments, they're called, which is a Google thing. And each one highlights a different music aspect. So you can explore sound, you can compose, you can play chords. There's science of sound type things. And if you've only really used the Song Maker, which is one of these, this is the Song Maker icon here. So when you click on that, you head into the Song Maker. If that's the only one you've used, I would really recommend exploring all of the other ones. I think Song Maker, this rhythm one, and Kandinsky are probably the three most commonly used options in this menu. There are some even down the bottom, which I haven't got in my screenshot here, but go and play with all of them. They are all fantastic. And this is a little snapshot of just some of them. This is not even all of them. So I know that lots of you will have played with these before, but they all allow you to introduce or highlight some sort of aspect of music and sound. And they're all fantastic, really, really good. All right, moving on from that, another googly thing is Google Arts and Culture. Who has never looked at Google Arts and Culture? This is an amazing array of resources to do with arts and culture. And there are a lot of art, as in visual art options, but there are a lot of music things in here too. And again, you may need to set aside quite a bit of time to explore all the options here, but I have given you a couple of links in Wakelet to narrow things down somewhat. Because once you go in there, you kind of like click through to something and think, "Oh, where even am I?" And there is so much stuff here. So I'd probably describe this as a sort of a curated collection of art related things and culture related things. Now, when I say things, there are uh, visual information, like a history of video game music, for instance, is presented to you, and you can play examples of music. There are lots of artworks. There are tie-ins between art and music. There's sound-based things. You can read information. You can look at visual images. You can look at videos in there. And then there are interactive tools. And all of these things are part of the Google Arts and Culture website. I really can't stress enough how in-depth these are. So I've highlighted just a few things here on my screenshot. So they have a whole thing on West Side Story. Now, it doesn't include the latest movie that just came out, which is fantastic, by the way. Do go and see it if you haven't already. I loved it. West Side Story is my favorite musical, apart from and Into the Woods, my two favorites. And I was a little bit worried about watching the movie because I was scared I'd be disappointed, and I was not disappointed at all. So definitely go and see it. So it doesn't have that one in there, but it has a whole history and information about the locations they shot the movie in, or the where the musical is set. And then it's got information about that time that the people in that musical were featured, like what it was like growing up at that time. And there are images and there are resources and videos to watch, and that's just for the West Side Story one. Then there's a whole thing on Kandinsky. So this is a great tie-in with that Kandinsky experiment in the Chrome Music Lab, and I know Amy's used this a lot with her students. There's information about Kandinsky. You can view artworks, you can zoom in on artworks, you can even paint sound in one of their other interactive experiments. And there's just so many things in there. I've just highlighted a few other bits and pieces here. There are music lesson plans in there, which utilize their resources in the arts and culture section. There's the video game music thing that I mentioned. If you're doing video game music with your students, this will give you instantly, in chronological order, great examples of video game music throughout time. So it starts in, I think the first one is maybe in the 70s or the 80s, I can't remember. And it goes through chronologically and highlights specific games. It has an image of the box of the game. It looks cool and it's really big on the screen. And then you can hit play and you're basically watching a video of the soundtrack with an like a waveform that moves. So it's visually engaging, even though students are really just listening to something. So that's all there. It talks about the composers. It's just amazing. So don't go gathering all your own stuff. Check that out first because it's really there. This one on the right here is film scoring, same kind of thing to do with film scoring. Anyway, I won't go on too much, but set aside an hour of time in front of the TV one evening just to go down the rabbit hole and explore what's in there. Now, similarly, and this is kind of tied, all of these things are tied in together. Arts and culture, the arts and culture section actually ties in these experiments into what they present in the arts and culture section. But I wanted to just highlight them separately here because you can actually go to a page which is called Google Experiments. And this is where the Chrome Music Lab originated from. Each of the separate things in the Chrome Music Lab started out as random Google experiments, and then they kind of brought them all together in the Chrome Music Lab. At least I think that's how it worked. So you can see there's Play a Kandinsky up here, and you can go there and actually it's like an interactive art, where you can play, and the tie-in with synesthesia and Kandinsky is there. There's hip-hop poetry, the blob opera I know many of you have played with before. This Paint with Music one, Amy and I recently learnt about from a mutual friend, Jim Frankel, and that one's a fantastic website to explore as well. You can sort of draw on the screen and hear your painting played back. So this is just a few experiments. Again, I highlighted not every one of them, but there's just a few there. And lastly, another googly thing, the Google Doodles. And I know, again, a lot of you have seen these. Each day a new Google Doodle pops up. Actually, not every day, but on special occasions. There have been over time many music ones which are actually interactive and will present information to you or allow you to do something like create something or play something or whatever it is. I actually gathered these together in a blog post. I did one which was originally called 9 Interactive Google Doodles for Your Music Classroom or something like that. It's in the Wakelet collection. And then I followed up later on with another 5, or actually Katrina, my content manager, did another 5 because they, had more that came out in that time. So they're all gathered there together, just the interactive music one. So that saves you the time trawling through the archive that exists for all the Google Doodles. But they're great. This hip hop one is if you're doing a hip hop unit of work with your students, definitely check that out. Really, really cool. All right, that's enough about Google. Did I go on enough long enough about those? Just really good, all free. Like, it's amazing. All right, other interactive, engaging sites. No surprises with this one, Incredibox, which has been around. I think I first showed this in 2009. That's how long it's been around, and still going strong. So when you visit, they did update their website, I think probably a couple of years ago now, in order to get around the fact that Flash was disappearing. And when you visit the website, you're going to see 2 options. One is download app, and the other is try web version. If you go to try web version, that allows you to use it for free on the web, like in the web browser. So head for that one if you're on Chromebooks. And then when you see these options for which one you're going to choose, only the top row are free and the bottom row options are paid as part of their paid app. So if you do want to access those bottom versions, which are amazing, really, really good. The Brazil one is my favorite. You'll need to download the app. So you can do that again for Chromebooks through the App Store if you do have iOS devices on the iOS in the Apple Store. Paid though. But the top options are all free. So if you've never used, I can't imagine there's many of you that haven't used Incredibox before, but essentially from this little bottom area here, you drag a sound up to one of the dudes that's on your screen and he'll start beatboxing or singing something. And you can build up a combination of sounds to make a really cool sounding a cappella style mix. Anyway, I have a couple of lesson plans in how to use Incredibox in a meaningful way with your students. Again, I didn't add those to the Wakelet. I'm making a list for myself of extra things to add to the Wakelet here, but that's there. You can just Google Midnight Music Incredibox. You'll find a few things there. All right. Again, another one that I've mentioned many times, over the years is Beepbox, and this is a really simple online step sequencer. Basically, when you bring it up, you'll click on the screen to add sounds, hit the play button, and it's going to loop this one little section of music over and over, and you can build up a composition. It's really fun and easy to use. And if you set your sound, I think the screen's changed slightly since I took this screenshot, but if you set your instrument type to square wave, it will sound like the Mario theme sound. It's got that really cool video game sound to it. So this is how I've used it in the past, is as a simple way to create video game music. And it works really well for that. I've made, you can make a composition which is as long as you want, really. You can have lots of sections which play one after the other. And I've done exercises where you can create a section A and then a section B, and then maybe come back to A again, and then even download it from Beepbox. And in your video editing software, you can add it to a video game screencast like a Mario Brothers one. And that works really well. It's a great way for students to try their own video game composition. Another one I want to mention again, which has been around for quite some time, disappeared for a bit and is now back again, is Isle of Tune. I don't know if many of you have played this one or not, but when you head to the website, this is what you'll see. There is an advert for their app, but you can click on the play button and use this on the right-hand side, which is their web version. Now, Isle of Tune is really weird to describe. If I've got some time, maybe at the very end, after the question and answer or during that time, I might show you if you want to stick around for that. But essentially, you get this island. It looks like a video game, really. and you're going to choose some road down here from this bottom menu. Click on the screen to add the road and build a road up. And then you add to your road some lampposts, some plants, houses, and then you add a car to your road. And when your car drives past all of the things you've added onto your road, they make a musical sound. So some of them are percussive elements and some are pitched elements. And you can make a melody up. You can see here on my example, which I just set up the other day, I've got 3 different roads. So this road here, I've got this one here, and this, I was going to say circular, it's a square. It goes in a, like the car goes around and around and around and just keeps going in a loop. But essentially, all of those play ostinati. So this one here just plays a bass drum sound at each end. So it goes boom, ch, 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 boom, ch, ch. And then this one does the same sort of thing with other sounds. And this car goes around and there are some pitched elements on there too. So you can build up a composition even with different parts and use Isle of Tune. Now, if you've used Isle of Tune in the past, the version that's been resurrected, because it did die off for a while, and this was again due to the demise of Flash, it went away. The web version went away. And then the developer recreated it using HTML5, which works across all devices and without Flash involved. So it's been recreated, but not all of the features have come back with the new version. So you may find that there are a few things missing that you used to have access to. For instance, there used to be a button down here called, I think it was called Loops, and you could add a pre-made section of road with things on it into your island and then play that back. But that's not there at the moment. I actually messaged on Twitter the developer, and he did say that he's going to be adding some things in over time. So hang tight, see what happens with the updates. But you can use it in its simple form at the moment, and it's really good. If you do want the more fully fledged version, it's in the iOS store, but I don't think it's in the Google Play store. I don't think it's available on Android. Okay. Another one from Dr. Music from Thierry. This is the robot sequencer. I love the robot theme. So this is it's a little bit, if you've used Chrome Music Lab, it's kind of a little bit like that. It's like, there are a number of step sequences out there where you can basically add sounds by clicking on squares. So I just made this yesterday or the day before. These bottom 3 rows are percussive sounds. So you add robots to the bottom row and it will create a kick drum sound. I think that's correct from memory. The middle row is snare drum and the top one are hi-hat sounds. So you can add those sounds in and press play and your sounds will be played back. The top section up here is pitched sound. So again, you can create your pitched composition there. So if you've used the Chrome Music Lab Songmaker with your students and you want something a bit different, or maybe you want to start with this one, you could head here and do this and then send the students over to the other one and then even move on for more fully fledged compositions to something like Soundtrap and BandLab. They actually work quite well as a sequential kind of moving up through the world of software and what's available out there. Lots of fun though. Another favorite that I've shown many times is Groove Pizza, and this is a rhythmic, a place to build up a rhythm. Now, this is a circular format, and in my experience, teachers kind of get freaked out by the circular format, and students are totally fine with it. So, I don't know, go and experiment. Don't overthink it. Basically, this is a pizza pie, the circle that you can see here, which is divided into wedges, and each wedge is essentially a different rhythmic value, well, a separate rhythmic value. So what you're looking at here in this circle is one measure of music. And when you add dots inside that circle, they're going to create sounds, which makes a rhythmic pattern for your 1 bar of music. So you can just build up simple rhythms in here. There are some preset rhythms if you just want to kind of see how it works. When you open it up, there will be one already there for you. You can hit play and hear what it sounds like. And then you can clear the pizza pie and then create your own sounds. Now, I love this for a simple way to get into creating rhythm and recording your own rhythms. You can just set something up really fast. I've used it in the past as I've taught a clapping game, and then we've recreated the rhythm from the clapping game in Groove Pizza. That's been the exercise. Fantastic way to sort of transfer performance into something in with technology. Down the bottom of the screen, you can see there are 4 circles here. So you can have a rhythm in circle 1, and then you could have the same rhythm in circle 2 if you want to, another one and another one, or different rhythms here. So this is actually 4 measures worth of music altogether, and you can choose to just have one playing over and over, or actually have 2 or 3 or 4 in a row. So one of my favorites, again, I love the simplicity of this tool. And again, you can start here and then move into something more complex, like again, BandLab or Soundtrap, or even the notation programs, and create further in there. Okay, one for the older students. This is, oh, I love this. And actually, I was thinking this ties in really well with some of the Google Arts and Culture material. They have a whole section in the arts and culture thing about synthesizers and the history of synthesizers and all sorts of things. But this is basically an online version. On the left-hand side, you can see an online version of the 808 drum machine. And on the right-hand side is an online version of the 303 baseline creator machine. Now, when you open up this website, both are there simultaneously on the same page. So you can actually create a drum pattern and a bass line, or just one or the other, and have them both playing at once. I will also say 2 things. There's actually an official 808 day. I don't know if you knew that, but I think it's in August. Yeah, it must be, because it's on the 8th of the 8th. That would make sense. August, 8th of the 8th. So in August, you could look out for that and do this with your students as a thing. Also, if you're doing anything to do with hip hop, the history of hip hop and rap, fantastic, perfect way to talk about those things and then get students to create using the tools that were around in the 80s. So just fantastic tools. So essentially on these, like some of those other step sequences, you basically click and add dots to these to add sound. So each row in the 808 is a different sound. And same thing with the bass one over here. These are pitches. So you'll add the dots and then press play, and you can hear your drum pattern play back. I think when you open this up, there are examples set up on both sides, which you can then clear and start again if you want to. All right, moving on. Video. Oh, video. I was in 2 minds about opening this can of worms, so to speak. But I do want to talk about some video. I'm wondering if Amy knows where I'm going with this. I feel like there's possibly a full webinar on one of these things coming up soon. But I just wanted to talk about video on Chromebooks, and if you've got the option of doing video with Chromebooks. I have a feeling not all Chromebooks have cameras. Is that true, Amy? Do you know that for a fact, or am I making that up? Amy will give me thumbs up or not. Not sure? Yeah. Thumbs up, yeah. We think yes. So if you have cameras and can use video with your students, obviously during lockdowns and stuff, this became a necessity. But I always thought it was such a useful thing in the first place. So if you can do it, don't run away from it now that you're back at school in person and go, right, that's it, we're done with video and all of those things. I think it's a fantastic way to assess students and for them to get creative. So I'm going to just mention 3 things here. This is not an exhaustive list, but the first one is Easy Virtual Choir. This is where I take a deep breath, because I feel like it's maybe going to open up about 73 questions for Amy to answer suddenly. This is a really great option. This was not around in 2020. So don't think, oh my gosh, all of that time I spent making a virtual choir video and I could have just used Easy Virtual Choir. Do not worry about that, because it was not around. It only came out, I think it was the middle of 2021. I feel like it was around July or so. So it hasn't been around for a long, long time, but this is a web-based virtual choir creation option. It's free to use and there is a paid upgrade, but there's so much in the free version. Many of you won't necessarily need to pay for the upgraded options. It will really be dependent on how many students you want at once in a single project. I think up to 50 is for free, and then over that you'll need to pay for more. This is really simple to use and it syncs the videos for you. So I know I'm sure some of you are crying right now, thinking all of those hours you spent synchronizing 40 student videos, it does actually do this for you. Now, I will say it's not like you get 40 videos from the kids and you're done. There is some tweaking to do, but for the most part, it's going to save you many hours. And I need to also say this is not for those super fancy virtual choir videos or virtual ensemble videos where one student is highlighted big on the screen and then the second one comes in and then 4 show and then there's an ensemble of 20 at once and then it goes back to 3. This is not going to create you one of those. This is everyone on the screen all the time at once, which is going to be fine for the majority of you out there who want to do this thing. Now, I would suggest that you could lead this project and get your students to contribute to a project, or if you have middle or high school students, I would totally get them making their own on their own because they can just log in and do a lot of you will have seen the a cappella app where you can make one student does a 4-part harmony thing or plays the 4 parts of their clarinet quartet that they're doing at school. You could totally get them to do that on their own, and they just need to log in. You have to log in with Google. Is it Google or Microsoft? I can't remember. You log in with Google, definitely, you can. Anyway, you need to log in with one of those. So just check that your students can do that. But this is just a couple of screenshots. This is on the left is my friend Anna. Anna runs a group of choirs, of which I conduct one in Melbourne. She's based in Sydney, and we used Easy Virtual Choir a lot last year when we were still rehearsing on Zoom for months and months and months, and we all got over it. We really got over it. So what we ended up doing was assigning some kind of side projects for choir members to do. So you as the teacher can set up the parts of, so this is Anna singing 5 parts for Isn't She Lovely? And it's just, we did little snippets of music. We didn't even do the full song. We just did a tiny snippet. Basically, it's the part that goes, lovely, so 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 lovely. That's the backing parts. And then the chorus goes over the top of that. That was it. It was like 4 bars or so, 8 bars maybe. We set that up for the choir members. So Anna sang the backing tracks, the guide tracks, and then each member of the choir could log into the project, choose one of the Annas to sing along with, or they could sing with 2 Annas or all of the Annas. You can choose however many backing tracks you want to sing along with or play your instrument with. And then they would hit record and record their part. Now, there's all sorts of really useful features to this, like when students do their recording and contribute their performance, you can either choose to let everybody see each student's contribution, or you can turn that off. So if you have students which want to have a go, but they're going to be too shy, you don't have to allow everybody to see everybody's. You as a teacher can be the only one. Then the final version maybe is what everybody sees, or not even. You don't even have to do that. So we did this, and I did another one. I did Bohemian Rhapsody, little harmony. We called them harmony builders, where it was just a short snippet of the song, and you can sing along. So we ended up with obviously other choir members as well. Once everyone's contributed their parts, you can tweak the timing. Sometimes someone will be just a little bit out timing-wise, and you can basically drag their video back along the timeline a little bit to tweak it. And once it's all fine, you hit export and you export your final version, and you end up with a single video file that you can then share, do stuff with. It's really good. It's really useful. There are a few tricks to it, but do go and experiment. There's some videos on YouTube showing you how to use that. And yeah. How's your reaction in the comments, Amy? Is this exciting for people? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe everyone's over the whole virtual choir thing now anyway. It is really useful. I think this is a useful tool to consider using longer term, just for side projects or even final versions of things. Okay, Loom and Screencastify I've talked about a lot. These are screencasting software programs, and they are both super useful on Chromebooks. So students can use these to hit record and record what's going on their screen or their webcam, or both at once. And there's many applications for this. You can get students to record themselves showing you their score that they've created in Noteflight, and they might talk through what they did in their composition. That might be their way of submitting some of their work to you. You can get them to hit record and just perform for you in front of the camera if you need to do that. Lots of ways you can use this. And as a teacher, this is a fantastic way to provide feedback or answer questions that students have, or even questions that parents have or carers have in your community. It's fantastic. I use this all the time. This is actually my go-to method for answering questions. I would rather hit record and talk than type out a whole long thing and then you've got to format your text and make sure it sounds correct and get the grammar right and all that. I'd just rather hit record and talk because it's just much quicker for me. So do consider that. This is a really brief screenshot of what Loom looks like when you go into the menu. And then you'll end up, I use Loom personally, Screencastify is very similar too. You'll end up with a library of videos that you can go back to. So if you answer questions and then the same question comes up later for someone else, you can just send them a link to the video that you made 2 months ago. So I find it really useful. All right, and last in the video section, and we are coming kind of towards the end here. So Flipgrid, I know again a lot of you use Flipgrid. Again, so useful for video assessment. Just getting students talking, feedback, asking them a question, getting them to perform something. It could be a short body percussion exercise. It could be their scales that they need to play this week. Anything like that. Works well on all devices, many different features. And again, I did do a webinar, it's a couple of years ago now, and Flipgrid has changed. There are some new features, but I think the essence of the webinar would still be relevant today. So go and check that out. I think that was my most popular webinar in 2021. It was 2020, I should say. It was very big. All right, the last section I'm going to just talk about really briefly, virtual instruments. And again, this became a big thing during sort of lockdown time and remote learning, but these are really useful for many reasons. If you don't have enough of an instrument in your classroom, using your Chromebook as an instrument can be a way to get around that. It can also be useful if you've got students that are not able to play the physical instrument. Sometimes a virtual instrument might cater for them as well, so that could be an option. And also, again, if you are back in remote learning or just need, for homework assignments, need something to set for students, these can be some options. So Xylo by PlaySprout, super popular option there. If you head into the options menu, you get some choices about what type of xylophone is displayed on the screen. And I love this one. It works really well. It looks beautiful. It's big, bold. You can turn on boom whacker colors or stick with the default, which are not quite boom whacker colors. You can turn on a specific key. You can have G major or D minor or pentatonic notes only or chromatic scale. Few options there. Once you've set those options up, you can actually hit the share button and send that link to your students. If you don't want them to have to go in there and tell them all the settings to make, just send them the link and it's already done. A couple of keyboards here. Pianos, online pianos. I like these too. There are some other ones out there. I won't go too much into them. You can turn on note names or turn them off if you want to. A few different options on the right-hand one there. Accordion, again, which is a kind of, it's hard to describe and you need to experience this, I think, but essentially you can embed a YouTube video on a page and you will be able to play along with that YouTube video. So you can play pitch notes and you can actually set up the notes of your computer keyboard to play only the notes of a certain scale, like the pentatonic notes or the notes of D minor or the notes of the blues scale in F or whatever it is you want. And you can set up a sound, a playback sound too. The one on the right there, the screenshot, that's me having set up a play-along video. I chose a rhythmic play-along and chose woodblock as the sound. So students can play along with a rhythm play-along video, not necessarily with instruments. You can actually use the Chromebooks in that way. So that's a great option. If you want to test out the one that I set up, you can go to this link here and I've put it in the Wakelet collection too. But I set it up so that the woodblock, even though it's woodblock, it still kind of has a pitch to it. So I matched the key that the play along video backing track was in. But students, I mean, really, it's fairly percussive, so it doesn't really matter what note they play for that one. But that's a great option for play along videos. Okay, a few from Cherry from the Dr. Music website. The ukulele and guitar options. Oh my gosh, these are fantastically useful. So useful. Congratulations on these if you're still on, Cherry, because I think they're just great. I'll just use the ukulele one as an example here. What you can do is you've got chords, so you can click on C and it will display. I don't know why I didn't press the button to show you on the screenshot, but you can display where the students need to put their fingers for the chord of C or D or E or F or any of the other chords you can see here. Now, if you click on the enter strum option, you can actually play the notes, like play the chords, I should say. So you can use this in two ways as a teacher, I think. One, you can use it as a teaching tool. If you need to just show students what the fingering is on the ukulele for the G chord, put this on your data projector and show the students. Fantastic. Saves you holding up your tiny fingers on your tiny ukulele at the front of the room or trying to think of some other way, showing through a document camera. I don't know what you normally do, but this is going to be much bigger and much clearer. And your fingers aren't actually covering the strings, which is a useful thing. The students will actually see where they've got to be placed. But the separate thing to this is that you can actually play this in real time. So if you've got a student who can't play the ukulele for whatever reason, my son injures his finger on Sunday night and we spent 6 hours in the emergency department at our local hospital. He would not be able to play ukulele at the moment because his finger is injured. So he could be using this as a virtual instrument instead. And you can actually use, can you see there's the letters of the computer keyboard on each of these keys here? That shows you that if you press the letter Q, you will play the C chord in real time, and then you can play the D chord. So you could switch, the student can play along with whatever the rest of the class is doing here too. I will also say that Terry has a ukulele course and resources for students. I haven't actually looked at that, but I've seen it on the website. So, based on the quality of his other materials on the website, I'm going to say it's probably a good thing to explore, but go and check that out. So, I'm guessing that this was developed to help with that program, but go and have a look at that. And the guitar option works in a similar way, but it's for guitar there. So I really wanted to highlight those because I think I haven't seen anything like this where you've got the chords clearly displayed and you can really do this quickly with the students there in real time. Okay, in addition, same website, another tool. This is the virtual recorder. I love this. This one makes me laugh. When you click on, or you can play on your computer keyboard, the notes of this scale, it will demonstrate, the robot fingers will demonstrate what the fingering looks like for that note. So I've obviously clicked A and I'm showing A here. But if I was to click G, you'll see the little robot finger pop out and cover the G hole there. So this is, again, a great way to demonstrate fingering for students or to use as an actual virtual instrument that they can play along with as well. And the last one, same website, is virtual percussion. And again, you can play these percussion instruments by using keys on your computer keyboard or by clicking on the screen too. When you're looking at this one, there's two little links, this one down the bottom here and this one along the side, and both of those take you to activities where you can use the virtual percussion. So take a look at those two. All right, that comes to the end of all the apps and websites and everything. I've got just two little things to mention. I did have a couple of questions. I asked if people had questions about Chromebooks, so I just want to answer a couple of those. The first one is about mics and keyboards. And yes, you can plug microphones and keyboards into Chromebooks. They work like they do on Macs and PCs. Obviously, you need to have open something that you can use the microphone in or the MIDI keyboard in. So for instance, you could plug a microphone in, and then if you were to open up BandLab or Sodaphonic or Soundtrap or one of the video editing programs, you can then select the plugged in microphone as your input device. You need to make sure that you do that. And then the app is going to use that microphone to record. And it's really great. And look, you don't need a class set necessarily of microphones, but if you had just a couple or a handful of mics, super useful addition to your classroom just to allow students to record with a bit better quality. MIDI keyboards do not make any sound themselves. So if you were to plug one of these in and not have an app open that works with the MIDI keyboard, you won't hear it. It won't make any, they have no speakers. There's no sound coming out of them. But as soon as you plug them into your Chromebook and then open up Soundtrap or BandLab or Noteflight or Flat, and make sure that you select it as the input device in those programs, you can then use the keyboard to enter notes into those programs and play. So this works really well. This is my preference when I'm entering notes into any of those programs. I like to play them in using the keyboard. So make sure you plug them in first. I've got a note here. Plug them in first and then open the app, and then make sure that you select the device that you've got plugged in as your input device. Lots of people plug them in and go, they don't work, or it sounds terrible. It's because you haven't selected the device as the input device. I'm going to talk about QR codes, and I just want to answer one thing, which I didn't put a slide in for, but Keith, who asked a few questions in one of the Facebook groups where I posted, Keith had a question about the shared piano in Chrome Music Lab and was asking about the maximum number of students who can take part in one of those shared piano activities. So this is a thing where you can open up a piano on the screen and students from different devices can log into the same piano and all play at the same time. So that's kind of cool. And he actually asked a question about the maximum number. And yes, it is 10. I did double check this. I believed it was. It's 10 students at once. So Keith, if you're watching, yes, if you want to have more than 10 students using the shared piano, you would just have to set up 2 separate rooms for them to play in. They call them rooms in the Google Chrome Music Lab. So that's that one. All right, so on to this QR code one. There was one other question about QR codes. So I want to just briefly cover 2 things to do with QR codes. Sometimes you want to create a QR code which people can scan in order to get to a website more quickly. So if you or your students want to create a QR code, when you're in the Chrome browser and you're viewing the website that you want to link to, so I've opened up that interactive Google Doodles article on my website. When I'm viewing that, if I wanted to send someone that link, I can either send them the link, or if you want to create a QR code for that, you can click on this little share icon here and choose QR code. And then the next thing that appears is a QR code, and then you can hit download, and that will download to your laptop, your machine, whatever it is, or just view, you can use it to view on the screen. You can even link to it. So if you can't download for whatever reason, you can even grab a link to that QR code. So that's useful. Now, that actually wasn't the question from someone. The question was more to do with how can you scan a QR code when, I think this was the correct, I'm hoping I've interpreted correctly. How can you scan a QR code when you're looking at it on your Chromebook, or how can you scan a QR code with your Chromebook itself? So 2 things here. Actually, let me go back here before I confuse people. If you have a QR code that, let's say you're showing something on your data projector at the front of the screen, and you want your students who are on Chromebooks to scan that QR code, you can actually do that through the camera. Obviously, this means that your Chromebooks will have to have a camera in order to do that. But you can actually scan a QR code through the camera of the Chromebook. Now, I've linked to an article which allows you to see the full instructions for that process and see pictures and stuff from a guy that runs a great website. This is John Sowash. I don't know if any of you know him. He has a podcast, and he has a website all about Chromebooks. It's not music specific, but if you need information about Chromebooks in general, I can highly recommend listening to his podcast or going to his website. So I've linked to his article about scanning QR codes. Now, if you happen to be looking at a QR code on your own Chromebook screen and you want to visit the thing that QR code is linking to, now, I have to give Amy total credit for this because she explained this to someone in my online community. Amy helps me out there. And I didn't even know you could do this until she showed us this. Amy Googled, I think she's saying. Anyway, Amy was ahead of the curve and Googled how to do this. And you can. Now, there's a couple of caveats. It doesn't kind of work for all instances, as far as I can tell. But if you are viewing a QR code, let's say on your Chromebook, you open up something which like a website and there's a QR code showing on that website, you can actually right click. So I've got an example here. Right click on the QR code and choose search image with Google Lens. Now, the next thing that happens is this right-hand screenshot here. The Google Lens tool auto-magically searches for that image and finds what it is. Now, it's saying, oh, I found a whole stack of QR codes that look kind of like that. Don't worry about all of those that show up. All you need is this link here. So it's basically saying, I can see that this thing is linking to a website. Do you want to visit the website? And you'll click website and head over there. Or you can copy the URL if you want to place the URL to that website somewhere. So that's all you'll do. The only thing I couldn't work out, I haven't found a way to make it work if you have a QR code displayed in a Google Doc that you've shared with the students. I haven't quite worked out how to do that. I've tested it. I couldn't get it to work. Maybe there's a way. If someone knows, type in the chat window and let me know. It didn't kind of work. You can right click on the image in the Google Doc, but you don't get the same options. I don't know. What I actually did with this one, and this may be an option, is I dragged the image into the browser. You can actually do that. You can drag an image, any image that's on your locally on your laptop, into the web browser, and it will open up in its own browser tab. And then I was able to do search image with Google Lens. So you could try that. It depends how the Google Docs set up. Anyway, hopefully that's useful information for some of you. Okay, that's it for Chromebook things. All of the things I've shown today work on all the other devices too, pretty much. I think all of them do. So if you don't have Chromebooks, don't worry, go and explore them on your other devices as well. So what's next? If you want more help after today, Amy and I are both inside the Midnight Music community. So this is my paid community. We have lots of courses and an online forum where we answer questions every day, literally every day. I took a break recently and Amy was good enough to just hold the fort and do that and keep that going for the few days. So that was very much appreciated by me. If you want to join, find out more information, there's a link that you can head to there, and you can also get to that from my website too. But we have a lot of fun in there. And if you find that you're asking questions in Facebook groups, as an example, and you're getting about 7 variations on the answer to your question, this is where a forum can be useful, because I feel that Amy and I kind of cut to the chase, and we will actually make you a video explaining the thing that you want to know about, because that's our preferred method of communication. It's just easier. We will make you a personal video showing you exactly what you need to know and how to do it and where to go and so on. But in addition to that, there's many courses as well. So do come and join us in there. If you've got questions about that, feel free to ask them in the Ask a Question, when we do the question and answer section in a moment. And I will, last of all, give you the link to, did I give you this link, Amy? I'll just pop this in the chat window too. If you'd like a PD certificate for today's session, you can head there and download. There's a form to fill out and you can download a PD certificate. It will be sent to you. Now, if you fill out the form and your PD certificate does not appear in the email to you, if you can't find it, please search your spam folder, your junk folder, and if possible, you'll probably find it's easier using a non-school address, because I find to some schools the firewalls are highly advanced and for some reason don't like these emails coming through sometimes. So if you're having trouble, if you've done it and it hasn't appeared, you can always give a personal email address a go and it will end up being sent back to your personal email address. The email address is simply so that we've got somewhere to send the certificate. It doesn't show on your certificate, so it doesn't matter which one you use for that. Hope that's a help. That's about it. I'm going to go over to the chat window. I'll stop sharing here and go back to us two. There we go. And you,
Hey.
Hi, you're there.
Yeah, I'm there. I have some questions for you from the chat room.
Yes. Excellent. Hi, everyone. I feel like I'm back. Thank you. Thank you, Judith. Judith, yes. Go to Dr. Music.
Yeah. And he was answering that the ukulele resources are in French.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Yep. I noticed that with
Wonderful.
the one thing, something else on the website. He's translated most of the other things to English,
Yeah.
which is very
Yeah,
much appreciated
merci,
in my time.
merci.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There you go.
Let me
Okay,
give
well,
you
that's probably useful for some. Our Canadian friends might find that useful.
mhm. I have some questions that were going on throughout the chat. So I want to bring some up for you now to get your answers on them. So let's start from the beginning of
Yeah.
your webinar. This goes back to Meg. I answered from my end, but I'd love to know what research you have for this. So, is there a good way to monitor Chromebook activity if the kids are one-to-one? I know iPads have an Apple Classroom. Is there a Chromebook
Uh,
equivalent? Our school uses Hapara for
ah,
that.
so you have more information about this than I do. There you go.
Yeah,
I
no, we
don't
use Hapara,
mm,
which is great
mm.
because once
How do you spell
it
that? AP?
Hapara,
A HAPA.
Hapara, and I did put it in the chat at the time it was asked. And what it is like through our Google Classroom, the Google Classroom sets up right into Hapara. So when I have a website, let's say I'm going to use Dr. Music's website, I can actually control their Chromebooks so that it only displays the website for my class. So like from 1 to 1:45, it will their Chromebooks will be taken over by Dr. Music's website.
Awesome.
It does have some issues. Like I have to make sure it knows that when they click on a virtual instrument, it will still allow them. Like just not only the website, but all the little folders inside the website will
Yeah.
be accessible. But it also I'm looking at all of their screens. So even if I didn't do that and I start seeing them go somewhere else, it's very noticeable and I can shut down their Chromebook right away. So Hapara
Lovely.
is the answer that I have for that.
That sounds good, yeah. I haven't heard about an alternative, but that sounds good. And yes, if you've got iPads, definitely explore the Apple options for the iPads too. It's super useful. I feel like they're very not many people know that they even exist. It's a free app that allows you to manage your iPad. So, yeah, fantastic. Thank you for the thank yous for those who are saying thank you, especially if you need to go. I just wanted to acknowledge there's been some lovely comments there, so thank you.
Here,
Next question. Yeah.
let me jump over to Kara's question because she's asking a follow-up. So Kara wanted to know, and this came up in the Facebook group, so I love, Katie, if you know the answer on this.
That's a hope.
Kara wrote, my students can't read full octavo, same thing. Do you know of an app or website that would allow me to simplify them without recreating them in MuseScore? And this showed up in Facebook this week. And the answer was not a fun one. It was like,
Input
scan.
all the night or whatever you need.
Well, that
Yeah,
was, we were trying not to. So like you print it
yeah,
out and then you literally cut and then paste it all back
yeah.
together.
My other
So
option, which is okay, I'm gonna be honest, not really legal, but I don't know. You might be able to plead your case under the fair use for education kind of thing. Not really legal though, is to scan the music. So you will end up creating a score in your notation software, but you'll scan it to make it faster. Probably a little bit of fixing up to do, but minimal, hopefully. Especially if the piece is not too complex, especially rhythmically. Anyway, scan it and put it in, and then I would create a new part which only displays what you want the students to see, which may be just single line or something like that. Is that the right sort of thing? That's what I would do. And for scanning, look, there are many options. If you want like the quickest and easiest and cheapest option, or one of, there are a couple of things. There's an app called Sheet Music Scanner, and there's another one called Play Score 2. And I feel like there's another one. These are like, this is what I do, phone apps, literally phone apps. You can put your phone over the score, press the button, and then play the score. It's actually really useful if students just want to hear how something goes and they don't read music very well, you can use that. Against copyright terms and conditions. I will just say that to you. There you go. Yeah, maybe give that a go. That is really the only way, or the physical copy and paste. I mean, the cutting and pasting. Yeah, that is an option. My mum does that still, even though she uses Sibelius. She will still sometimes cut and paste onto things.
okay, I need to see your mom doing that.
she knows how to use the Surveillance, and she's quite quick. Like she plays her scores in, but just occasionally, I think she's like, it's mainly for scores she hasn't created herself, and she's the accompanist, so she's kind of going the other way. She often wants more
Got it.
information than what's been presented. So she wants the choral part with the keyboard part, obviously piano, and it's maybe not there, that sort of thing.
So, Katie, do you have from Megan? Do you have any good microphone recommendations for your Chromebooks? I use the Blue USB Yeti.
Yeah, the Yeti's fine, and the Snowball, which is like the baby brother of the Yeti, also good. To be honest, I've lent more in recent times to the Audio Technica. The newest model is Audio Technica 2100X, X for X-ray. So it's the model number is ATR. That's the Audio Technica, ATR prefix. ATR 2100X. And the reason I like that one is because this is not it, but it looks like this is a Shure, SM58, whatever. Thanks, Amy. It's a handheld mic. Like the thing with the Yeti and the Snowball is they're not regular shaped microphones that you would hold in your hand to sing into. No one's singing into a Yeti holding it on the stage. Yeah, there's like no one's holding that. Like great for podcasting if you're sitting on the desk, fine. Not so useful when you're singing into it. Fine if you're playing an instrument and you're going to sit it on a thing in front of the instrument. The good thing about the Yeti and the Snowball is that they have options for picking up sound all around or just in one direction. And that can be really useful if you want to do like record an ensemble. Those are good options. Sit them in the middle of the room or attach them to a mic stand, the actual microphone part, and then use those. Or the Audio Technica one, I mentioned that because it's inexpensive. And the other good thing about that one is that it has the option of plugging in via USB or via XLR cable, which is the regular mic cable. It actually has in the end of the microphone, there are spots for either of those things to go. So you plug one in and plug it in USB or use the XLR cable. So that's useful if you want to plug into a mixing desk or an audio interface. It's just really flexible and it's got great reviews and price wise $100. It's less than that for me it's 100 I think in Australia. It's less than that for you guys in the States. It'd be 80 or something like that, and education discount, all the things. So that's the one I would go for. There are others, there are a few others out there, but that's a useful one. I think Amazon has them. Yeah,
that's great. Great. How about a good, inexpensive keyboard that will hook up to a Chromebook? This one is from Heather.
Oh, yeah. There's a few options here. The brands that I normally head for are Akai or Novation or what's another one? I feel like it's another one, but I can't remember. To be honest, I haven't found that one is like amazingly better than the other. They just have slightly different features. So if you've got older students, for instance, and you're going to need to use buttons to control sounds, then some of them have those little buttons on them as well, the square buttons in addition to the keyboard keys. So that's the Novation one, there's one of those. The main difference is choosing how many keys you want. 25 keys is small and portable and you can chuck it in your laptop bag. And then there's, you can get 49 keys or 61 keys or 88 keys. They're the sort of the standard options. 49 is kind of good as if you wanted to set up like a semi-proper lab, like a keyboard lab, where students are going to play things on the keyboard as opposed to just entering notes. 49 would be the smallest size you'd want for that purpose. 61 would be better. 88's too big. It's too big to fit in the classroom. So if it's just for you, fine. Too big to fit in the classroom, set. The small ones, though, awesome. If you just want to have a few that students use to put notes in. The other thing to check, so this is my decision-making factor, is the key size. So I have about 4 different MIDI keyboards, which are small. I've, accumulated them over the years. One of them is an Akai one, and it's awesome. It's so portable. It has hardly any keys on it, which are going to get knocked off in your bag and stuff. It's just really good. Mm-hmm. But the keys are small. So if you've got big if you're working with teenage boys and they've got big fingers, I'm being terribly sexist here, but you know what I mean. If small key size is not good, then look for that, or you can get full size keys on a small keyboard still, but it's going to be larger in size, obviously, than the small key one. Oh my gosh, that was a long answer. Anyway, any of those, I don't think you can go wrong with Akai, Novation. M Audio also has a range. They change their models every, year or two. So, anyway, there you go.
Awesome. Now here's one from Teresa. So I'm curious to know if you have an answer for this one. I'll tell you what I answered. We had a weird thing happen in one of my classes with Chromebooks and shared piano. The links the kids sent each other through their board emails went to the other kids' Chromebooks in the class, not the ones whose addresses were put in. This is a Chromebook issue. I only said, is your Chromebooks OS updated?
Maybe. Yeah. I haven't heard about that happening. That's very special. How lucky are you to have a special kid?
We don't want those types of special though, what we're trying to teach.
Better when someone goes, oh yeah, I've totally seen that all the time and here's how to fix it. Sorry. No, I haven't heard about that. It's funny, whenever I share anything from any website, any of those websites where you can hit a share option, I tend to not ever put in. I'm presuming we're talking about inputting email addresses into that option. I don't know why I've always done this, but I always grab the URL and send that to the person somehow through whatever messaging app you're using. I don't know why I feel like that works better, but I do. That's how I often do it. So I don't know if that's a help at all. That could be something to test, but yeah, that is weird. It's very lucky. Sorry.
We don't want to be that kind of special.
No. Terrible. I love it when you go to like the Apple store, to the Genius bar and you go, oh yeah, we totally know how to fix that. It's like great.
Do you send the chat? Judith wants to know if these because you're answering the questions, and do you share the chat, Katie? I can never remember.
Do. Yeah. So if you've registered for the email for the webinar, we send out a link to the replay page, and the Wakelet's on there, the video's on there, and a link to download the chat transcript as well. So yes, we do that. Yep.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I search them. It's quite good. You can open them up in a PDF thing and just go Control F or Command F and find, so search for the name of the thing you want to know, like microphone or Novation or something like that. It cuts to the chase a bit.
Great. Yeah, the chat came up a couple of times if it would be sent. I think I've gotten all the questions, so feel free to throw one in the chat if I didn't convey it back to Katie.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, everyone. I appreciate the lovely comments too. Thanks, Teresa. He says, I always learn new stuff. Yeah. Yeah, Judith, I do that all the time. I'll tell you what, I'll tell you where it's really useful, and I have to remind myself to do it. When you go to a YouTube video and you think, oh, I wonder if anyone's commented on this thing. So what I do is do Control F, or I'm on a Mac, so I do Command F on the page where I'm watching the YouTube video, and I type the word of the thing I'm looking for. And then you can find it more easily without skimming through 400 YouTube comments. It's so good. I also do it in blog comments. When I'm looking at a recipe online, which you do, who looks in their books anymore? You just look online. So when I'm looking at a recipe, I'm like, I wonder if that person meant, this sort of flour or this sort of flour. So I do Control F, Command F, search. Inevitably, someone's already asked the question, and the person who's written the article has answered it down there, or someone else's comment. Yeah, I tested it, and this is what happened. So, yeah, I think it's really, really useful. Yeah, so it cuts to the chase a bit. Yeah. Jane says it was wonderful. I've been sharing various websites with your students this week. Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad. Yeah, hopefully there's a few new things for people. I was a bit wary about sharing all the same things that everyone's seen, but then again, I always think, you know what, a lot of people haven't seen the things that I think everyone's seen. So there's always someone who hasn't seen something.
Yeah.
But there was a few new things today. That's good. Great. Thanks, everybody. We might wind up if there are no further questions, and you'll be able to watch the replay, the repeat, whatever you call it, on YouTube. Starts out as an unlisted video, but I will go in later today and make it a public video. The reason for that is we got burnt too many times with crazy spam people coming along. Who would want to watch a webinar about Chromebooks in music education? And yet all these crazy people bombing the comments. I don't know how to get around that. I feel like that doesn't happen all the time to everyone who does live YouTube webinars. I need to do a bit of Googling, but the answer has been to make it unlisted while it's live and then switch it to public later on. So we will do that. So yeah, thank you, everyone. Lots was new, says Romy. Thank you. Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Laurie, as well. Glad it was full of useful information. All right, we will sign off. So thanks for coming, everyone. Make sure if you go to my website and basically sign up for anything, like any blog post, handout or anything, you'll end up on the mailing list. And that's a good way to find out when the next webinar is. If you're a community member, we put it into the calendar inside the community, so you'll see it there. And yeah, I'd love to hear some comments. I always like to do things that I think people actually want to see and hear from. So I chose Chromebooks today purely based on the fact that it was a thing that came up in that survey. I will be looking at some other stuff as well that came out of that survey to choose future topics. But if you have something you want to suggest, feel free to do that too. Thank you. Thanks, Kara. I never say no. Yeah, oh my gosh, it's 2:40 a.m. in the UK. Go to bed. Go to bed. Wow, that's commitment. Thank you so much for coming along. That's amazing. All right. Goodbye, everyone.